Hello, this is Cassidy Beischer with Oshiva.com. Today I'm going to walk you through how to use presenting a title package After Effects template. You'll notice when you open the project that you'll see a series of folders, and that's where all the assets are kept in the project. The first thing I'm going to want to do is import some video. And when you're inside After Effects, you can just drag footage in, and you can just place it in the footage folder for a good organizational rule. So now that I've found all the clips that I want to use, the first comp that I'm going to want to edit is the video wall comp. You can always find the comps that are included in this After Effects project in the comps folder above, but I'm just going to double click on the one in the master timeline to get inside and do some business. You'll find all the video walls located here, and if you ever are confused about what's what, you can hide a layer. It's an obvious way of showing what a comp is. So to drop in your own video, I'm going to double click on the video wall pre-comp, and you'll see all of our video placeholders here inside the timeline. So if I click on the first layer, you'll see that's highlighted. And if I hold down Command and click the down arrow, you'll see all the layers that I can navigate through and pick which video placeholder I want to edit first. I nominate video placeholder 10. You'll see we have our placeholder graphic, which gives us our 4K guidelines. You can always scale up a 1920 by 1080 video though, if you're not shooting in 4K. And output to HD. The clips that I'm using are going to be 5K, so what I'm going to have to do is actually hit S and scale these down by dragging the properties and resizing them to the 4K composition resolution. So if you're working with HD footage, you actually scale this up instead of scaling it down. I'm going to find an endpoint for my video by dragging the video to the left, which will determine its start point. And you can see our video is placed up at the top left. And I'm going to continue to drag in footage in each video placeholder to create the video wall. Trying to find a good frame here to save time and to help your sanity. We're going to fast forward this because what you're going to want to do is repeat this whole process for every video placeholder that you see in the video wall pre-comp. Okay, to do anything great takes patience, right? So here we have our video wall, and as you can see, I'm dragging the playhead around, and you can see it's taking a little bit of processing power, and that's because I have the spotlight turned on. I'm just going to shut it off by hitting the little eye here and turning it back on. You can see it creates a little shadow or vignette. So if I go into my custom view here, you can see where the spotlight is in relation to the camera and the video wall. If you go to your custom view, you can move this light around by dragging the access points. You can see it lights up the video wall just like a normal light would if you moved it around. I'm going to head back to the active camera here. Now we can edit some text. I'm going to click on layer 4 here and double click. That will highlight the text, and you can just start typing whatever is relative to the project. I'm going to type in photography and a creative little subheader like behind the scenes, because this is somewhat of a behind the scenes theme. Essentially my crew was just waiting while the photography did their session, because photography had to go first and get everything they needed while, like always, video goes last. Now let's say you wanted a longer phrase. There's a couple ways to do this. One, you could just leave it long, but I think that looks kind of funny with the subheader, so I'm actually going to break this into 2 lines by hitting the return key and then going to my direct selection tool. You can hit V for that, as it's a shortcut here. Oops. Click on that layer again. Very carefully hovering over the Y axis, I'm going to drag this up to a spot that I think fits nicely. So that's just an optional way to do text, but I'm going to go back to the way that I had it. Now if you're discovering that your text is hard to read, We want to click on this black solid layer, hit U to reveal the keyframes, and go to the first keyframe. You'll see there's a little 20% number. So you can just drag that up to an opacity level that you feel works. Some of the footage behind the text is a little bright, so increasing the opacity on the little black solid helps separate your text from the video wall by taking that to, for me, about 63%. And you're going to want to do it on that keyframe. So now we can go to our next composition in the master timeline. I'm going to double click presenting one lower third, and I'm going to want to find a video clip to replace our placeholder. So I'm going to drag this into the timeline and delete the placeholder layer. And now I just need to scale this down because it's a 5K clip, and then drag it to the left to find a good endpoint. To cut a clip, you can use the shortcut by typing Option left bracket, and that creates a little endpoint. So I'll just slide this to the left. So to RAM preview this, I'm going to hit 0 on my numeric keypad, and now I can play this back in real time. And if you don't like the placement of the text, before we edit the text, I want to show you, you can use this little null object. So if you click that layer, hold down Shift and move it to the right or the left, holding Shift will lock it into place, and you can find a better position for every single layer, and you don't have to move each element. So let's edit some text. I'm going to double click on presenting text placeholder, and then double click on the text layer and type in some relevant text. This man who we are featuring is a very cool guy, so that's what we're going to define him as. And if I close this composition, we'll see my text is updated, and this is where we want to utilize our move null object, because this copy is way too close to the left frame. I'm going to click it, hold Shift, and move that over slightly. So let's check out our results. I'm going to hit 0 on the numeric keypad. So our bold text looks nice. Now it's time to edit our second text placeholder. And because he is a cool guy, we know that he will prosper in life. So if we go back to our master timeline, we can see we've just now edited 2 compositions within our After Effects template with only 10 left to go. So again, for your sanity, so instead of repeating the steps again, because the second placeholder, presenting 2, is essentially built like the prior placeholder. So just repeat the same steps in this composition as you did in the previous composition. So now that we've edited our second composition, presenting 2, the upper third, we can edit our next video wall layer, and you'll see using the same videos as our first video wall composition. And you can always save the project as another project file and bring in more video files and render out different versions for video walls. I set it up this way so that you wouldn't have to drag in videos for every single video wall iteration. And now it's time to type in some relevant text again. Shooting in 22K. I'm going to future-proof this because someday we'll be shooting in 22K, except for Ari, because they'll still be shooting in 4K, and it will look better than any camera that ever shoots 22K. And also 1-to-1 compression, because we want to bog down processing power, and that's the goal. Now, one other thing I want to mention is this black solid is adjustable. If you click it below, you can drag this up and expand it by clicking the little squares. If your text isn't fitting or you just want a wider canvas, again, I'm going to adjust the opacity to 45% so it's a little darker. So in my opinion, this is an effective looking video wall. I am through with this composition, and I'm through with you, and I'm through with you. So let's move on to our presenting 3 lower third, we're going to fire through with what we've already covered. So changing the text to something relevant, a very cool guy on an empty stage where dreams come true. And now it's time to edit the logo. So I'm going to drop in the drop logo, which is my production company's logo, and replace the placeholder SwiftStock logo with the drop logo. I'm going to hit S and scale this up, and because it's a vector file, you'll notice it's not top-notch quality. You need to hit this continually rasterize button to make this clear. You can see now the edges are clear. If I take it off, they're fuzzy. We don't want fuzzy logos, do we now? This is your brand, and it deserves the continuously rasterized function. And there's our very, very cool guy alone on stage making his dreams come true in front of nobody. So moving on, heading back to our master timeline, I'm going to skip editing the next two because I don't want you to die before this tutorial ends. So hopping into the optional bumper, we're going to double click inside the optional bumper text placeholder and type amazing, because that's what you're going to be after this video is released. Now for the second placeholder, type in something really obvious. However, sometimes you'll want to try different phrases out. And this was kind of built for a one big bold word with a 2-word subtitle. But let's just try a little longer phrase like super awesome. You'll see a longer phrase messes with our design, but don't be scared. With our move stroke null object, we can end all design sadness. Click, hold shift, and slide to the left. But do not clap your hands. Super awesome fashion photography. So now that we have tweaked our optional bumper, we can go to our next composition, the video transition, and drop in some relevant footage. How many times can you say relevant in a tutorial? I'm going for the record. So now we'll pick a endpoint that works, and hey, it looks like he's pushing the video transition. This was meant to be. This clip was meant for this transition. Serendipity at its finest. Now hopefully we can find another most perfect clip for our video transition. So I'm going to double click on the next placeholder in the master timeline, drag in a relevant clip. Gosh, and what is more relevant than hot, greasy onion rings? That was me. I want the onion rings more to the left, so I place them where I want the onion rings to go. And you see how I'm an amazing director with a placement of the onion rings. This takes years and years of craft to decide where food is placed in a composition. If the onion rings were placed more to the right, it would have had a different emotional response. Fincher would be proud. Look, the lighting is even green like 7. Now that I've destroyed any chance of you watching any other video content from me, I'm going to double time this next editing sequence. Hot onion rings for the crew after a long shoot. Now we just need to modify the blue stroke here. Hit V for the direct selection tool and move that, slide it to the left. So we have design competency, and change our next word or phrase that is wiped away by that little blue stroke that zips across the screen here. You can see that is the end card placeholder. So I'm going to double click that and again type in something applicatory. So we have hot onion rings for the crew after a long shoot with extra grease. Now it's time for a little tweak to the logo, something that's pertinent. I'm done with the relevancy. I'm going to open up the stills folder. Maybe there's something in here that's applicatory. Ah yes, a crappy clip art onion ring logo. Let's hit title action safe to give us the crosshairs we need to center our crappy logo. And the built-in transparency that you see is an aesthetic choice that we are most certainly going to fix with our mask tool. So removing the aesthetic choice with the pen tool, we have now tweaked the crappy logo to something a little kinder to the eyes. So when we preview the transition, we have a congruent theme. Now let's say you want to tweak the little light flare that flares up in the corner there. You're going to want to disengage the shy button and click on the light flare leak movie and head up to your effects and presets and type in hue. That'll pop up hue and saturation effect. Hit colorize and then increase the saturation a little bit and then change the hue to the color of our crappy onion ring logo. You can see now the two work as best as they can together. So that's it for this tutorial. Make sure you watch the two others on exporting and rendering, and also the vertical video version, which shows you how to export and upload to your Instagram's story or Facebook story feature. This is Cassidy Beischer with Oshiva.com signing off.